The American church is in crisis. At first glance, this may not be apparent, but while many signs of its evident growth and success abound, in reality, the church in America is not booming. On any given Sunday, the vast majority of Americans are absent from church. Even more troublesome, as the American population continues to surge, the church falls further and further behind.
Even though we see all these mega churches on Christian TV, or we walk in a Christian bookstore and it looks like everything's going great in Christendom, it is not.
The American church is experiencing the difficulty it is because of the changing world. And especially in the last 6 or 7 years, the American church has found that even though there are some really positive and good signs of what God is doing in our midst, for the large majority of churches, it's a difficult time. It's not a booming time, but the American church is in crisis. I have worked for many, many years at trying to do something different than a polling tool. I've tried to find out what the actual head counts of people are in church. And I've worked at collecting a database of about 200,000 churches and 10 to 20 years of Sunday morning attendance, the year they were started, the zip code they're in, so that I can really find out what is happening in the American church. In 1990, do you know how many people attended church on any given weekend? Almost 52 million. In 2006, do you know how many people attended church on any weekend? 52 million. Between 1990 and 2006, the United States grew by 52 million people. So while Christians worshiped in their sanctuaries, those 52 million people, an additional number of people, the very same size as those that attended church on any given weekend, ended up showing up in America. That's what the problem is in the American church. We're stagnant. We're staying exactly the same while the population is growing in a very strong way. So let me ask you this question. How many states, in how many of the 50 states, is church attendance growing faster than the population? Here's the answer. The blue states, it's growing slower than the population, and the pink state, it's growing larger. 49 are declining in the percentage of the population attending church, and only one state is seeing growth, and that state is Hawaii. Why is this happening? What is making it so difficult for the church to see growth? But surprisingly enough, when you take churches and sort them out based on their size, 10 different ranges of sizes, you'll find that not only are the largest churches growing rapidly, but you'll also find that the smallest churches are growing faster than population growth. But look at the bar in the third, the fourth, and the fifth one. Those are the mid-sized churches. Those are churches from 100 to 300 people. But middle-sized churches are stuck in the middle. They're too big to be intimate often, but they're too small to have some of the high-quality ministries. 50% of American church population is in that middle zone from 100 to 300 people going on a Sunday. So on the right-hand side of the chart, those were churches started in this decade. And then the next column is churches that were started in the 1990s, then 1980s. Do you notice it goes down to 0 in the 1970s? And when churches get over 40 years old, every decade declines. But a lot of churches that are over 40 years old, they have low energy and they're experiencing those signs of aging, and it's very difficult for them to grow. Well, from the year 2000 to today, about 3,700 churches close every year. And that means to keep up with population growth, we need to plant an additional 2,900 churches every year if we hope to keep up with the surging population in our country. So here's the chart that is the last chart I'll show you, and it'll hopefully help you remember why this is so critical. This takes from 1990 and takes 5-year intervals and tells you the percentage of the population that is attending church on any given week. 20.4, 18.7. In 2005, it was 17.5. In 2010, it'll be 16.5. And in 2020, it'll be 14.7%. That's the state of the American church. That's what's happening and why it's happening. But I am an optimist, and I'm an optimist because the Bible says that the gospel is the power of God that can bring about the salvation of everyone. And because we have that power of God, we have to ask the question, what would God want to do in our midst? How could we live out the gospel in a more powerful and deeper way? How do churches need to change? What do we have to do differently? And what I'd like to do is talk about 5 different solutions that we have to implement in the American church. But I'm going to go through the first 3 pretty quickly, and the last 2 are the ones I really want you to think about. So here's the first solution.